going.
Okay, there's two different calls to order here, so I'm going to call the Housing Trust to order with a quorum, and Larry on Skype.
With wine.
With wine.
With wine. Oh, thanks, Larry.
Am I the only one tonight?
It looks like a lovely bouquet. Art, do you want to close your committee?
Yeah, and I'm called the Harwich Housing Committee to order for the quorum.
Good.
Okay. This is really not going to be as much of a working session as it might look to be, but I wanted to first bring your attention to the fact that when the Affordable Trust was brought into being, it was done by a town meeting vote accepting a bylaw. And in that bylaw, we're supposed to be meeting once a year. Since we've existed for far longer than that, it's good to see you guys because I don't think we've ever done this. Couple of things that I'm looking to not thrash out tonight. Art and I have been talking quite a bit, actually, and Art's been going to all the trust meetings.
Can I just introduce everybody?
Yeah, why don't we go around the table
I
then?
just don't know, haven't made.
The man in the black box is Larry Brophy.
Yeah, I'm here.
Judith Underwood from the trust. Hi.
Art Bowden, Harwich Housing Committee, Chair.
Don Howell, various roles.
Cindy Mullen with the Harwich Housing Committee.
Joe McFarland with the Housing Committee.
Brendan Lowney with the Trust.
And we also have sitting out there Andrea Albano and Charlene Greenhouse. Howage. All right, I'll make sure the next time I meet my dentures are more secured. All right. Two things. I mean, we're supposed to be meeting, like I said, annually. One of the things that we're supposed to be doing, and this is what it's supposed to be doing. We're supposed to review this, so we're not doing that tonight. But I think it's really important. I mean, I've kind of joked with staff for the trust that in a way we're at day zero because I'm just ignoring some of the other things we did. We have been doing some positive things in the trust. We've aggregated land. We've got about $800 and something thousand of money. But even at that, I mean, we don't have an action plan. We're going to start working on that. So there's two things that we need to at least know, and then I'm going to ask for some feedback from you guys about what it is concerning you. We're supposed to go through the housing production plan annually, and so we're not doing that tonight because I only got through page 33 myself. And you know, compare that to what it is your wish list would be. The second thing is we're going to have some ongoing discussions about the delineation of responsibilities because when the bylaw was created, it pulled certain things that you were responsible for into the trust, but that doesn't mean I don't see a role for a housing committee because there needs to be some policy input and there needs to be some advocacy separate from the trust in the community to demonstrate that the town actually cares about the situation in general. One thing that we did was we're at the CDP's workshop, what was that, about 10 days ago?
Yeah, I think.
And I'm not going to speak entirely for Art, but we had a pretty strong understanding, and this is something the trust could help with, that the problem isn't just affordable housing with a capital A. I mean, so once you get above that threshold, there's an egregious need for workforce housing, and we haven't addressed at all. And Art was very helpful in that workshop too. I know Judith participated, and so did Brendan. In any event, those are the two things, and those are going to have to be brought back. I mean, so it's kind of like a homework assignment. I want you to ponder what it is you'd like to see as a central role for the trust, because you and I have talked about that for a year now. And read over the production plan because we both own it. I mean, the town owns it. The only thing that I can say, and Art's been hearing me say this, and so have my own committee members, this is going to be done in cooperation with the outside world. I don't really want this to be just an academic endeavor. If it doesn't result in an improvement of living circumstances, a roof over somebody's head, or a rental buy down, or something of that order, then I don't really want to spend all our money on just studies and other stuff. It really needs to result in something happening that puts somebody in a house of reasonable condition. And to that end, and then I'm going to shut up. To that end, action plan vendor is looking for us to identify stakeholders. So this really needs to be an ownership situation in two ways, not just in housing, but in the community owning this. The ladies on the other side of the room have heard me talking before today's meeting. I happen to have a very strong feeling about open space too. They're not natural enemies. There needs to be a place for both things to occur in the town. We need to get the town's people to embrace that fact that we're not taking away anything from you. This will be protected when it's meaningful, and this is going to be built so that people have a place to live and contribute to the community. I've identified a number of stakeholders. I would like you to take that as a homework assignment too. So those are the three things. Read the production plan, contemplate what you'd want to see, pull your charge back out, look at it, see what it is that you can do, see what it is that's not possible any longer, and then identify people that you view as stakeholders, and it could be from any direction. The providers might want to be a workshop to say what kind of roadblocks they're running into that's slowing them down from doing what they would like to be doing. Could be employers that are saying, I can't find people because there's no reasonable housing for them. Whoever it is you consider that the issue of affordable housing touches, from whatever angle, would be a stakeholder. Because ultimately we're going to wind up with a big end conclusion where everybody has some sort of say in some sort of larger setting. At least that's my vision for what the trust is going to do. And in that way, hopefully we can break some of these boundaries down. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Art.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on one second. Hey Larry, we can hear a lot of the background noise. I want to be able to put the volume up, but I think it's just too loud.
Yeah, can you tell the party goers to, like...
Or just press mute unless you're going to speak. Do you have a mute button there, Larry?
Do I have a mute button?
Oh, that's better. That's better. The feedback was just, okay. I had him pretty much down.
And Larry, I'm turning it over to Art now, but then we're going to go around the horn ourselves, around the table, and see if anybody has any input for anything else. But I don't really anticipate any outcomes as much as understanding what our obligations are coming out of the room.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To say a few comments, I just want to make an open statement here. Number one, thank you for the opportunity to participate in a joint meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust. And as you're aware, the Housing Committee desires to have an enhanced role in working with the trust. I brought this up numerous times in numerous venues. And our wish right now is that we can start on a path this evening to form a partnership. And thank you very much. Now, we haven't been totally sitting by doing nothing.
Never said that.
One of the things we've been looking at, or maybe I've been looking at, is what are other towns doing? And one of the towns on the Cape, I'm talking Cape Cod now, the town of Orleans has put together a manifesto, if you want to call it, on how the housing committee and the housing trust can work together. Okay. Now,
is that an extra copy?
Or could you? Well, I don't have an extra copy of this. I have to get the link. The link you can get from Donna Koenig. She gave it to me, and I thought for sure she had provided it for everybody else.
I'll look it up right now.
I can't. I lost
that kind of
I
stuff,
get that.
yeah, but that kind of stuff I want to make sure that our consultant gets, so that it's part of the action plan that we're developing.
Yeah.
So that is the reason we're meeting too, in addition to the fact we're obligated by the bylaw. I wanted to be able to establish, okay, what is it that everybody does when they grow up?
So what I've done is, I don't know if you've kept your copy, but it's umpteen pages long, it's 20-some odd pages, a lot of which is of this, what I call the manifesto, has come right from the housing production plan, and I didn't have to make copies of it again. But I boiled it down, I pulled out about 3 pages out of it that kind of pertains to what we're trying to do here tonight and going into the future.
Thank you.
Anybody else that doesn't have a copy? Joe?
You can share.
You can share?
I'll do
Okay.
that.
Charlene? I got one left. Like I said, I just pulled these pages out. These actually pertain to the working relations, the nuts and bolts.
This is Orleans,
This is
not
Orleans.
not
This is
us.
not us.
We can do whatever we would like, but it's a good place to
But
look.
it demonstrates what other towns are doing. And that's one of the questions I've been asking when I go to different meetings. What are other towns doing? And Andrea
You gotta
pointed
get
out
some
a number of
data.
times, there's a lot of things going on between the different towns, what they are doing. And it seems like Orleans has really grabbed the bull by the horn, so to speak, pulled the 2 committees together and really make them a working committee. Instead of 2 committees, they make basically almost like 1 committee, but they're still have their own identity. So, I don't know, expect any great action on this tonight, but it's something to read. And they list a number of objectives that for the housing committee to be working on in conjunction with the housing trust. So,
May I ask a question? Just
Sure,
some clarifying,
please.
certainly. So will CDP be updating as a consultant, be updating the existing production plan? Or is this,
They're not doing it.
They're not doing
They
it.
need input from us
Okay.
to start it, and I'm not sure that Charlene's plate isn't so full, that's not gonna happen under her.
The housing production plan we're talking about?
yes, that's my,
I
one of
mean,
my
that's
questions.
not that old. It
No,
only
it
needs to be
isn't.
updated every 5 years.
According to the bylaw that created us, we have to review it every year.
Well, reviewing it is
There's
one
different
thing,
than
but
updating. Okay, so
updating
that's
it,
a
yeah,
good clarification.
yeah,
Yeah.
Although
It's coming up,
it's coming
but-
up.
right.
but who,
There's several moving parts about things that are going on right now. I mentioned it to Selectmen the meeting before last, the comprehensive plans being updated. That's the super most important
Yes.
one.
Mhm.
It's going to take input from this for the housing part of it. So it's important that this aligns with our vision for the plan. But that's, what, a year away before it actually,
I don't even know. But as far as the housing plan, that actually got approved in January of 17. So
so we're okay.
We're
right
okay with
now.
that.
we're legally okay, but I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that everybody was conversant with it too.
And the housing committee was a part of that.
right.
the housing committee
Before the
was
trust was even,
was a part of that.
Really?
We actually had a committee appointed by the then town administrator, and it was made up of several different
Because
entities.
we had a representative to.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
okay, so that, it's not a question of updating and who would be responsible. In the past, or what I've seen for housing productions plans is an entity is contracted for X amount of dollars. Whoever funds it is one thing, maybe a
Right.
CPC or what have you, but
Yep.
that's not, we're talking about reviewing, so that's,
Yeah, I mean, and there's gonna be, I mean, I've got some questions already, because I know the original plan, let me back up. Sylvia Laffin and I co-wrote the charge for your committee in 2000. So I'm pretty conversant with what the committee was supposed to do. At the time, it was written to try to jolt the community into an awareness that something needed to happen, and we populated it ourselves with people that we handpicked, knowing that they were advocates. Dick Gomes, what's his name? Realtor. Richard Waystack, Bob Murray. I mean, there were people who were known advocates, and the idea was to get something concrete out of it as opposed to just having a committee to meet. And it really was the focal point for everything. The first plan that we talked about, I think it was about 2002, and Andrea and I have had this conversation. I haven't seen in here, we had a desire to make sure that the housing that we did wasn't going to be concentrated in one area originally. It was going to be in the village, each of the villages was going to take it, it was going to be integrated into the communities, as opposed to an identifiable plot of land where we've just done a half of what we want to do in one spot. Kind of like the Hesh housing, the Habitat housing, where it was just like, just another community if you were driving down the road, as opposed to like the Chatham or Dennis models, where they have a grand scale something or other where they just put everything in one spot.
Well, if you look at the map that the Housing Committee, well,
No, if it's in there, that's fine. I've only gotten through half.
we reconstituted the housing map, and it shows, it's spread, it's like a shotgun, it's spread around the town, it's not concentrated. It looks a little concentrated because of the Pine Oaks 1, 2, and 3, because of,
Right.
and that's 50% of
I mean,
our
that's the
housing.
existing plots, though.
But it's around town.
I'm
so
talking
it's-
strategically about how we.
Well,
It is spread around town.
this plan followed the guidelines and requirements of the state. So there may be some things that aren't in there, but they're kind of assumed. Of course, you don't want to put everything in one
Well, that's
one
why I'm
spot.
bringing it out, just so
Yeah.
we can explicitly say, nobody's saying, let's switch trains and go in another direction, are they? I mean, we've done what we've done. Art gave me the map, and it shows a fair distribution around, you know, all of Harwich, and just put that out on the table, unless somebody is going to say, oh my gosh, we're not doing that anymore. That is the plan. I mean, it's unstated, but that's what we've been doing, that's what we're going to continue to do. So we're all okay with that?
Pretty much. I mean, Harwich, you know, we pretty much are, because Harwich doesn't have large tracts of land for development.
Well, it probably could, but,
It could, but I don't know that we would choose to do
right,
that.
I don't think any,
Well, after you bring in conservation concerns, water concerns, it boils down pretty good.
Based on
To
the
small.
parcels that the town owns that are available right now, it's slim.
It's slim.
Although that's,
Yeah, so it negates the fact that someone say, oh, they're gonna build some large complex.
Right.
That's probably not gonna happen.
we have not yet established, this is what you don't have and never had. We have money, and we can actually establish priorities that we're going to concentrate the money in this way to be able to get this result. You guys have never had that ability. I mean,
Correct. We're an
somebody could-
advisory board.
Yeah,
Well,
so
yeah.
to the extent we've aggregated money, and we're going to continue with the same plan, we have the ability to do something that you weren't doing, is we could, once we establish priorities, figure out how to get to that mixed use thing, where a friendly 40B is using the other 75%, not just for high-end market rate stuff, but we try to skew it towards the interims. I describe that as a couple of rungs missing on the ladder, which it really is. I mean, we're doing something for the first rung, affordable housing, and it's not until you get to the fourth rung that you get middle and upper middle class housing. There's no workforce housing that's happening, because it's not economically available on a regular commercial model. If a developer comes in, they want to make the market rate money to be able to support the 40B stuff. So
But may I ask, so as the trust and the committee, we recognize the need for little a affordable housing, workforce housing,
We
but
can
we're
do
also
that.
charged with capital A,
yeah,
right? And that, my
Yep.
belief,
but in doing the one, we
I
can
get-
get to the other.
absolutely, but I think we do want to make sure we're focused, our primary focus is capital A, not only for the town and what it provides in terms of bonds and what have you, where we want to be at for the state level in our affordable.
Fear not, we would be violating the law if we use the trust money on just small A.
Yes, you couldn't do
No.
it. So, and being creative and smart and palatable to the community, you do want that mix. And communities only do it. And I think that's what we've been looking, as the Harwich Housing Committee, we, as an advisory committee, we're here, we're thinking, okay, wouldn't this be great, but we don't have any teeth in the game now that we have the trust with money and perhaps a lot more teeth going after land, a lot more power, let's say, than this committee has had.
See, the point that Cindy here is making, and it's a very strong one, is that where we get stumbled all the time or tripped up in the housing committee is that word advisory. That's in there. And that seems to jump out, it seems to be capitalized, and the spotlight is on that. In other words, the committee seems to get their input from the Board of Selectmen as an advisory. Now, to illustrate that, when I came on into the housing committee, and when I cheerfully accepted the position as chair, I asked the question one time at one meeting, where do you get your input? You know, or how does your input come down to? And I don't know who it was on the committee, piped up and said, well, the town planner comes to all our meetings, and this is back in your predecessor days, and that was great. He had time to spare, and he would sit down with us and say, you know, I think you ought to look at this, or I think you ought to look at that, or I think you ought to do this. And that's pretty much how it ran. Well, at the same time that I asked the question, he retired. The new regime came on. I mean, that wasn't really his job, but he made it his job to come down and kind of coach, be a sideline coach to the housing committee and say, well, you got to take a look at this and come back to me and see what you think, or I don't know, I wasn't part of the discussion, but you can understand what this discussion might have been. So, so I said, well, geez, he's not here anymore, and it's not the town's planner's job to come down and hold our hand or so we got to look out. And then the voice kept saying, well, Art, we're advisory committee. So I said, well, that's all well and good, but I can't sit here and do nothing. I want to do something. So that's what set me on the road to going to various and sundries committees that had something to do with housing. I mean, I don't go to something that pertains itself to whatever. I'm almost interested in housing. So you see me at the trust meetings, and you see me at the Housing Institute, which is great learning experience. I mean, they're just invaluable to put on, and so on and so forth. And occasionally, if there's a housing discussion of some sort on the Board of Selectmen, I'll go to the Selectmen meeting. So anyways, that's where we're at, and that's where we've been.
That's kind of where I see you guys going, although it's not, we're not going to rebuild it tonight, but you need to look, that's why you need to go back and look at the charge that you've got. Ultimately, I see it as a policy and advisory board. I mean, and that would be where it would be its biggest meaning. You shouldn't have a policy and advisory board where you're getting advice from the people that appointed you to get advice, by them giving you advice so that you can come back and give it back to them. That's the whole point of advisory committees, is that they have their own area of concern, and they give advice. You get an annual meeting with the Board of Selectmen, but more importantly, as I said, Art's been sitting at every meeting for the trust, and I anticipate that relationship continuing, so that there are going to be other stakeholders that could be helpful in supporting this. But the thing that a planner can't do for you, you'll have to hold your ears for a second, is
It's okay by me.
they can't deliver you a groundswell of public support.
No.
They can design
Well,
it.
Charlene might be able to do that.
She said something about joining Larry on the veranda after June.
Where we often get stuck is that we have land, we look at plots, and okay, so we've got these ideas, and then where to go with that? We're not writing the RFP. We don't have any teeth in it, that we look and say, okay, we would recommend, and we're not developers, some of us work an agency that has development, but that's not our role either. We look and then we're kind of stagnant. We say, okay, this is what we want to propose, but we feel as though it doesn't go anywhere. But now with the trust incorporated, I think it's something to be looked at. I expect the trust and consultant to be looking at parcels, coming to us. We should recommend. I think it's a combination, but are we overlapping too? I think we really, again, tonight's meeting is the first to talk about.
I mean, if I might, I think it's not a bad idea to have two different groups looking towards the same end, because you may be looking at it in a very different way. There may be land or opportunities out there that you all become aware of before the trust does, and those are the kind of things that
That's the
you then
advocacy
bring,
part.
yeah,
Yes.
you then bring to the trust's, attention. So I do see a role there. And I've always said to Art, if there's something you want me to do or help you with on your committee, or if you want me at a meeting, I'm more than happy to be there, or whoever comes after me. So, we're always there to help. If you're interested in a piece of property, we can do some research for you. If, a couple of things in the housing plan are to, and one thing we did already is we made, last May, accessory apartments allowable by right. Which I just checked the numbers today, and I think since that bylaw changed in May, we've had 6 new apartments in town, which is not bad. I mean,
I would call that a
pretty
success,
good.
really.
That's pretty good. But some other things we need to look at are the multifamily housing bylaw, which right now is only allowed in the high rent districts. Or you need so much acreage
That you
and
can't. It's the
and
zoning.
so
Yep.
and
Another
also
zoning
so
issue.
many acres per bedroom that it's more intensive than Title V or even future sewer regs. So
Right.
that needs to be looked at very closely, and some major changes made there.
And we came in, just so everybody understands it, we came into this sewering absent input from housing.
Yeah.
And the problem with the East Harwich construct in general is that we're tapping off of somebody else's capacity, and they've got this large bundle that they're allowing of gallonage. And you can decrease it in some areas and increase it in the others, but there's a cap. It can't be seen as an opportunity for increased development without somehow making the overall maximum allowable gallonage. So
And
when we saw in other
wastewater is always
areas,
the biggest development
when
problem.
wastewater
Yeah.
is looked at in other parts of the community, I expect that we would be at the table to say, wait a second, if you do that, you're going to actually strangle this.
But the other thing is, until the sewer system is online, until you have a good baseline for what is being put into the system, you don't know if there's going to be a little
Any
extra
ripple.
or not. You just don't know, and that's going to take a few years. So if there is a development in the sewer area that does go online, there's so many different ways of doing water savings these days that, you have that as part of whatever development you do. And frankly, that should be in every structure being built in the sewer area, is water savings, because it's based on your water usage.
Water in, water out.
Yeah.
But the lead into one of the things that Charlene was saying is that about land. And early on, I was looking around for see who's doing what, and the Real Estate and Open Space Committee I keep saying, is one of my favorite committees. And I'd go there and I'd sit and listen, and after 2 or 3 meetings, they'd say to me, "What are you doing here, Art?" And I said, "Well, I'm housing. That's what I'm doing here." And, "Oh, good, okay." And then after a while, if there was a parcel that came to their preview and it looked like it was a remote chance of putting housing on it, maybe you had to put stilts in there first, but I'm just kind of joking. I'd just say, "Hey, take a look at housing." Now, I don't think I really changed. Maybe I changed it a little bit, because up until a certain point, they weren't considering housing. The Real Estate and Open Space Committee, as well-run they are and great they are, and I think they're a great committee, but if you read their mission statement, it's basically, they're looking at land for water preservation. That's their number one goal.
But-
Housing is...
But it's still one of their goals, and I think you definitely opened their eyes to the fact
So,
that
you know,
they should
I-
also be
I-
looking towards that.
I wouldn't build housing knowing it's going to be a detriment to water, and if there's a chance you can form a partnership with conservation, then I think there's an opportunity with housing there going forward with conservation. That one hasn't really been breached yet.
As we,
but
We
we're
tried.
getting there. We tried, we tried,
As
and
we
it almost had a
are-
success.
As we are being televised, I'm going to at least throw them some kudos. I've had some, I'm their liaison
I
too.
know you are.
And I've had some meetings with them, and I am well satisfied that they're taking seriously everything that they're charged for now. You know, they recognize that it's not just open space, it's also to assess property that could potentially be surplus but could be reutilized by another town department. It's housing, there's a whole bunch of things. I'm just trying to unravel what everybody's relationship is with everybody so that they can work in the same direction instead of feeling like they're working in, you know, in opposite directions. And in this case, so far, over the past year, they've been making great strides in making sure that they're accommodating everything. And I think that we can all work together, I really do.
Oh, no, they are a working committee, and they do a lot of research. They got some very knowledgeable members and put a lot of time into it, and so on and so forth. So, I threw a pitch in the other day about the pet cemetery for land, and, you know, maybe somebody else is getting, maybe water department is a need, fine. But at least, you know, housing said, hey, take a look here. And, you know, it's not up to housing, it's not up to real estate open space, it's the committee to make the final decision. And that's where the Board of Selectmen come in. Let them make the heavy decisions, you know, but they should have the input, which I'm hoping to do it by voicing my opinion or concern, that, hey, maybe housing can be an option here. Maybe it can't be. But if you don't ask the question, it'll never be housing there, or, you know, or anything else.
And I was just gonna say, you've been an awesome advocate. I know all of the housing committee, but you especially, because you came even to the housing authority. And but I see a great opportunity. One of my concerns is, as we do move forward on projects, is that we do get all the stakeholders together. And that can be hard. We're not a huge committee, and I think that's something that the trust and the housing committee can work together to make sure that we have the opportunity to do public events at varied times of the day and night, and maybe on weekends. There's enough of us, I think, out there in the community.
You're our first evening, baby.
That's why I never go to your meetings.
No, you guys had a forum last year.
That's why he's got a little bit of
That's right.
It was.
The housing trust meeting?
Yeah, it was.
Or even an
It
early
was a
morning
workshop, it
meeting.
wasn't a housing
you know,
It's tough to get there. I have to tell you, I'd love to sit with him every time, as long as it started at 6 o'clock. But it always starts at 11 or 12. You know, one thing I wanted to say is I think you have to start from the beginning here. I have to read this first, and then I'd have better knowledge. But that I read from cover to cover, this Orleans thing is very interesting. And they both have you're not getting too far away from the charter of the Housing Committee when I say the Housing Committee has very specific roles and responsibilities. And until you agree as a committee that if we write these, because we don't have roles and responsibilities. We're not doing anything. We're sitting around, I'm sorry.
That's why you're here, Joe.
I know. And it's very frustrating.
I know.
And so until we decide what the roles and responsibilities of us, of what we do, and specifically what we do, action plan taken, and, you know, I'll just get rid of us.
I did mention this was day 0.
I got it. I got it.
I'm trying to ignore everything that we didn't do because Andre and I have had quite some conversations through the past year and a half. We need to start at the beginning because we never did that. It was like
Right.
we caught a bus in the middle of the route and decided to take it wherever it was going.
Right.
And ultimately, we need to have the public behind this. But the fact that the trust exists as a trust, you should not minimize, because we can do something else that nobody else can do. We can acquire land that's town-owned property and put it under our aegis, and we can flip it, which my resident guru on, which my resident guru on doing the,
Trading.
yeah, well, we need idea guys, and he's one of them. You need to be able to look outside the box and say, okay, this is a nice piece of property, and I've said this to everybody on my committee. There's a difference between a stand of trees on a piece of property and protected open space. We can flip. And I know Larry and I have had discussions about that before there was a trust. There's a lot of things we can do. The relationships have to be delineated. We got to figure out where we're going. The action plan is part of that. I'm just telling you, the CPC was already talked to earlier tonight. They're an identified stakeholder. The planning board's an identified stakeholder. The ZBA's an identified stakeholder. You guys are. I'd like to see the chamber, because they represent the smaller businesses in general. But any input you could get is not wrong. I mean, so that's just the beginner list.
But you say, working outside the box, Don, is a person I'm working with now, and we're creating, a skilled nursing facility, and right next to that is workforce housing, okay? And the town is ecstatic about it. Not only that, they're gonna give money from the trust to help do the infrastructure, and then the actual hospital is going to do a 99 years on rental assistance, because they want people to work in that skilled nursing facility. So that's a little bit of thinking outside the box. I don't know if it's within your purview to think like that.
That's down the road. All I really, like I said, I'm not trying to limit you. I mean,
No, I know.
well, coming out of this room, I want you guys to read the production plans, see if there's anything you want to change on it. Read your charts.
Start with the action item, so that's
Yeah.
easier.
Read your charts,
Of
see
the
what
plan.
it is that
Yeah.
you've outgrown, see what it is that's not there that you think should be there. I promised you we're gonna have more than just one meeting. Art's always welcome at our meetings, and he does talk and we listen.
I'm glad I'm welcome, because I'm coming anyways.
And then a quick question, Art, is that how you advise? I mean, do you come to meetings and just openly talk, or do
I
you,
just come and talk.
and then you meet once a year with the,
No,
Board of
no, this
Selectmen,
is their first
No,
annual.
with the Board of Selectmen.
no, with it, so I'm just saying, how do you advise? Like, do you put it in writing? Do you meet with the Board of Selectmen once a year?
Well, that's
Do
why
you
I was
just come to
saying, you-
meetings and present?
Brendan, you're into something, but you
Yeah.
don't realize it. He can't do anything like that.
Right.
No.
The committee has to.
Yeah, the committee.
Well, and the
will-
committee hasn't had much,
Well, that's what I meant, I was talking. Art.
How often do you guys meet?
we meet
monthly.
monthly, but we haven't had much to chew over.
The chew over, yeah.
I-
To be honest, we've
I
had
had
nothing.
one developer
We've had
come-
nothing to chew over.
I had one developer prior to you, Mary, coming and say, hey, we're thinking of this, or give us more, and then poof, gone. It was a friendly 40B. Again, so we need, we sit around the table and we're, well, we can't purchase the land, we can advise. It's
So
been
so I
a-
guess
it's
back
been
to
a
my
tough-
question, when it's time to advise, what action do you guys take? What do you
Is it a
do?
verbal?
Yeah, verbal, do you go to, would you come to our meeting, would you go to open space?
Now that there's a trust,
Well, now
You
that
would
the
come-
trust, we'd come
we
here.
would,
You could-
but it would be Board of Selectmen, but also we talk with the town, and, well, no, we don't really know what's there, it's not big enough to really, even for us to put so much energy
Okay,
in.
just curious.
Yeah.
Before there was a trust, the selectmen's policy, along with the charge for the committee, the last time there was something like that happened was on West Main Street, where Hesh was selling Habitat the property, and they are asked to assess the value of the project and whether they would go in front of the selectmen to support that project. That's how it happened. That's getting redefined because of the existence of the trust, but it doesn't mean you don't get to the point where you can give policy advice and project assessments to work with us.
And one of the other things that the Housing Committee did do is listen to request, application, whatever you want to call it, for funding from the trust, the housing trust we have. We're talking about the monies from the cell tower.
Yeah, this is gonna be difficult. There's a capital T trust, which is this, and then there's a small
Yeah.
T trust,
So-
which was a fund
So
that
the
was
housing
fed by
committee-
the cell tower.
Yes, the housing committee was active in that process. In other words, they were like the first step away if, and most of the time it would be like Habitat or, the housing authority looking for funds. or
And if I'm not
something.
mistaken, I think the cell money funded the last update of the production plan.
They did.
But,
Where does it
and
go?
I don't want anybody to walk out of the room misunderstanding this, with the advent of the Housing Trust, capital T committee, the funding is now being voted over to the Housing Trust funding. So that's not available anymore, except through the Housing Trust. But that's not to say we wouldn't fund that. That's why it's important to be able to stake out
Well,
relationships.
it makes sense to just have one checkbook instead of,
Yeah.
two checkbooks. or-
But do you have,
Well,
you
it's
have
still
total
two checkbooks,
autonomy,
it's just under
Yeah.
one authority,
One
one,
Pretty much.
autonomy
And it makes it
to actually, you have money, right?
Not mine.
I know, and, but you find something, do you have to go back to the selectmen for approval? Or is
No,
it-
we don't have to go
No.
back to
You
town.
just
that's
write
the,
a check.
that's the beauty of the trust.
Right?
You can jump on a transaction that can't wait 8 months.
Okay.
They
So
can go
I
out and
think
bond if
I
they
think
want.
what Dawn is trying to say is that, we probably haven't worked as much with the housing committee as we would like. And I think we'd like for that to become more collaborative and, you could join in on us and, there's a number of things we can do. We can tweak the zoning. And you were talking about Art goes to all the meetings. He knows just what we're doing. And if he's got suggestions, he's more of a leg breaker than anything. It's somewhat in the background, but he does it pretty well. And I think we're looking to work with not only your committee, but with the Conservation Committee and see if we can really get some work done in the next year and actually put people in houses, just like the chairman said.
Couldn't have said it better, Larry, thank you. But for those who came in a little bit late, I'm not looking for an action in the room as much as the homework assignments, because
Discussion.
this is your housing plan that you participated in last time, and we're supposed to meet every year according to the bylaw to at least review it. We didn't do it the first year, but we're here now, aren't we?
Well, technically, you guys, the trust didn't start meeting until December of 18. So in actuality, it's only been in
Year and a half.
existence.
Well, not
There's
even-
only been a trust
Year.
Yeah, 'cause I
established
just opened my foot.
that could meet, begin in,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
just passed our
it's
year.
just
I think
past
we're
a
right
year.
on target.
And technically, all we have to do is say we've reviewed it, we like it, it's good for another year.
I'm not saying it in a punitive way, guys, I'm just saying that we should have started with this, and here we are.
But can I clarify too, just for my knowledge too, for the trust, and again, we talked about capital A and little a, but the trust money is CPC money, so that really has to be capital
You're
A
right.
money.
It could be capital A by law. The law says that you only have to provide 25% on a project like that. It could be capital A and still achieve the workforce housing along with it.
That mixed piece, but that's the focus really of the trust, right?
That's kind of pretty like.
To
We could even sell $1
Forge.
million lot and spin it out.
That's, you and I have talked about that, that's exactly what I was thinking. You might be able to get more bang for the buck by flipping a property for $1 million here that might get you more acreage for the $1 million somewhere else and get something more out of it. But all that's down the road. I don't want to do anything
Right.
unless we have an action plan, and the action plan's calling for identifying stakeholders right now. So we're at the point where I don't want to see the housing committee go away, so we're going to have a better relationship, as Larry has discussed, and we're going to go out with those two things first. This isn't going to be the only meeting we're ever going to have. And hopefully I can give the contractor, the stuff that will allow them to proceed with the plan that we want to have developed. I'd said it to the trust, but it's worth repeating to you guys. we don't even know, if you look at this like a stool, where you've got rental assistance, rehabilitation, building brand new, I mean, it could be a fourth leg too, but we don't even know within those categories what enjoys what priority, never mind should we be supporting a friendly 40B from a commercial developer as opposed to an affordable housing provider. We don't have any priorities set for anything. And I think it was foolish of us to think in terms of, okay, we're going to start building. We do have a project that we're working on, because Larry feels the same way. I mean, the only way you're going to show success is by being successful. So we got one project I think is relatively close to being that. And as a matter of fact, one of the participants in the property, the junior theater, has actually written a letter of support for that project. The first time around when we tried this in the 2000s, they were somewhat hostile because they thought that that was going to be a zero-sum thing where they'd lose and we'd win if that got built. Now they're looking at it as a complex, you know, where they're a participant.
He's typing.
Would,
Larry's typing.
Larry's
You can hear his
sorry.
typing.
It was a little distracting, sorry.
there was just
So
tapping his
so let me
fingers.
just go back. The trust has a potential project in the pipeline.
Sisson
right?
Road, at the top, the
But
head of Sisson Road.
we haven't even been talked to about it. Now, I missed last month's meeting, I realize.
Actually, you
Well,
identified it
Art's
in the
been to every
mid-2000s,
Yeah, but we're mid-2000s.
and we own the property. That's why.
The trust does?
Yes.
The
It
trust?
got transferred at the last town meeting.
It's town,
Okay.
it's town-owned
Trust.
property.
So that would be an easy one because there isn't any priority that you have to worry about. It exists.
Trust?
It,
Oh,
the only
okay.
reason you don't see 2 quads or 2 eightplexes in there is because we failed to get an executed contract out of it. The land's been sent over and voted by the town meeting to the trust. It's already had 2 abortive attempts to do something there. I'm pretty sure we can do something now. And at that point, it'll buy us some time with some progress here while we do this other stuff. Because I don't want to go another year with this just meeting conceptually. And I don't think anybody on the trust does.
No, it's a good project. I mean, I think
Truth be told, it'll take some time for that to come to fruition. So in the meantime, I've asked the town administrator to review what priority having an engineering review for hydrologic purposes on Oak Street, what that would result in as being buildable land, upland. So that's another thing that's kind of, it's light lifting. We don't have to worry about, you know, strategically where we're going to be 5 years from now just to do those 2 things.
Well, that's a good update, because Sisson Road has always been on our agenda, and it's been tabled. We just don't know. So it's good to know there's a possible movement. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but again, I think, so it's important information that comes back to the advisory committee to then say, all right, yep, get us on supporting.
And this could well wind up doing something that I would like to see happen. There are going to be elements of historical in that because it's in the district. It's got arts because the junior theater rents the building. So if we could coalesce 3 different types of groups that would not normally be working with each other, that would be a positive move. We'd not only be able to achieve the affordable housing, but make it happen with everybody as opposed to you lose, I win. Which is really where the first 2 attempts fell. Because it started looking like if you build that, then I'm not going to be able to do this. Hopefully, if we start at the beginning working together, that would be good. We've already had 1 talk with MHP about that. And I do recognize that the smaller it gets, the more we'd have to put into it.
Yes.
But that might make it compatible, and that may be something that we'd want to look at doing, is giving some more money so that it would make people feel more comfortable. My goal is that people don't get to drive down the street going, that's where they live. It really is.
MHP wouldn't fund it if that's what it looked like.
No, but my goal would be that that's what happens within this town, because we've already started down that path, that we can do this without it ramming down somebody's throat, because it's a community, and the community has all those things. It has culture, it has theater, it has historic value, it has open space, and it has housing. It's just a question of how we can get everybody to the same place, and I think that the only way to do that is making sure the action plan's successful. I mean, it's a guy thing, but it's probably not a good idea to get into the car and drive without the map.
I just point out that with all of the push going on for revitalizing this Harwich Center, revitalizing Harwich Center doesn't happen
Customers?
without residents.
Oh, housing,
So-
people. That's-
Businesses
my
call
word
them
was people.
customers, yes.
So, you know, when you're talking about, yes, it's the district, but it's also pushing the revitalization of Harwich Center, you know, seems like a nice thing to do, to have some additional housing down at the edge of the district.
And they're down as a stakeholder also. Stephen has a passion for that on the Board of Selectmen. He would like to see that succeed, to regenerate the center of town. And I look at it this way: you're going to put capital at risk, you got to have some reasonable expectation of getting it back. So if you have more people that are there and walking the area, it's always a good thing, because you got to do a business survey anyway to be able to find out whether anything you're going to do is viable. Nobody's just going to dump money in the center of
You have
town.
a new pub, you have a new convenience store,
And deli.
and deli with housing going up.
Courtesy of a bylaw.
Town center looks better already.
Yeah, 708, fresh coat of paint, new roof.
It's been revitalized.
Yeah, that looks nice.
But that's my
That's why the
example.
Royale was really exciting last week when that came up at those two meetings. I don't know where it ended with ZBA, but
It was continued.
it was contained, that's what I figured.
The
Is
apartments
that a
are
good thing?
And the apartments
being
on
fixed
Harwich.
up.
Fresh coat of paint.
That's what I'm-
Windows, windows,
That's good.
In any event, don't look at it as vexing. It's kind of like a Chinese puzzle box. You move a slot, you got to move another one, but we're going to get there. The point is that we still need the roadmap. I keep getting back to that. That's the real purpose of being here tonight. Why do you exist? What's in your charge that's an impediment to what you think should be happening? And what's in your charge that you just don't do, and it's worthless to even have it there? Because I got friends in a different room that can go over the charge again and revise it. But why would I revise
Well,
the
I think
charge
that's the
without
board-
talking to you first?
Well, is it your, I mean, is it the Board of Selectmen's charge? Yes. So,
It's
and
their
we're also
charge.
talking with
Yeah.
the trust. I think this meeting is about how we work together, how do we, now that the trust exists for a year and a half, where do we
fit?
now?
My value is that I am, based on the bylaw, both on the trust and on the Board of Selectmen. So I can bring back whatever it is you're talking about to your board and see what is it, this is what they're recommending that they would like to see, and the trust agrees with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we get to make the decision, right?
No.
It's
Part of me does.
part of you does.
No, but it's
yeah.
important that you have a process. That way they'll know how it happened. Yeah, it's done.
Hi, anyone who doesn't know me, Donna Kalanick. I am on the Harwich CPC, but I'm also on the Brewster Housing Trust, and I think it might be helpful for you to have an idea of how we interact with our housing committee. So, just in the last year, our housing committee, they actually brought forward the ADU bylaw change. And we worked on it with them together, and now they are doing the promotional component of it. We have a piece of property we've been working on, Millstone Road, for housing, and we're in community engagement. So instead of them having their monthly meeting, they came to our community engagement with the idea that there would be extra people who knew about housing and were educated in the room to help answer questions, to help advocate for housing. They have a meeting next week. They're going to do the outreach events for the CDBG block grant money that we're trying to get. And they do, but it's in their charge to review any potential 40B, but it's actually within their charge.
The advisory committee.
the housing, Brewster Housing Partnership.
Which is not the trust.
Not the trust.
Their partnership is like the housing
Yep.
committee, it's the
Yep.
same, they just throw in the word
Clarify,
partnership
yep.
in it.
So that's just a couple of examples of ways that we're working together to all get to the same goal.
Don, when
Actually,
you-
glad you said that, because that's the other thing I've talked to our consultant about, is that there are in existence a number of trusts on the Cape already, in Yarmouth, Brewster, Orleans, and we're gonna review what flavors they're all pursuing to see how we can extract the good ideas from them without having to redesign the wheel.
If you look at Orleans, they just did documents and they actually clearly define all of the roles of the different art.
And the consultant is Andrea?
No.
Or separate?
It's a separate consultant, specifically to design out what the plan is for the town.
Who's the consultant?
JM
Jan Golson, Community
Golson.
Planning.
Who is it?
Jennifer Golson's firm.
No, don't know, okay.
She's currently working with Provincetown on
Okay.
their VSW site, and she helps East Ham with their strategic plan.
And it's particularly attractive because she grew out of not just a passion for affordable housing, but also from the community preservation environment. So it occurred to me that we could probably use some closer relationships in that area too. Because just to say it, it's not gratuitous just to say it to you guys because you're on the CPC. I anticipate, and I've told David this, that the relationship we have has got to be a whole lot more professional from our end, being able to produce some of the things that you guys want to see, that you should reasonably be able to see, about what it is we want to spend our money on, because it does, in the first year is a leap of faith, and I get that, because there needed to be a bucket of money, or else what's the purpose of having the ability to jump on something without town meeting if you don't have any money to spend? But having said that, we've got some money now, and before we go and ask for more money, there really needs to be a clear understanding of what are these guys going to be doing. And so, again, the plan. So I'm not looking to resolve anything tonight other than the fact that I recognize that there are things that we needed to talk about. You need to look over some things, and then we'll have to schedule something again to get some input on it, because Jennifer wants to see stuff anyway, and it's important to be able to, if we're paying for this, we might as well get as much out of it as we can. And I really mean it, because everybody is kind of confined by the blinders they wear. Put down a list without respect to what I said earlier, of who you think would be a stakeholder. It's probably got to be like within the next week, because we're holding a meeting next week. Give some thought to it. And, just submit a list, because I'm going to try to, collate it so that we, I'm expecting that there's going to be a large amount of overlap. Like whatever list you give, whatever list Brendan gives, probably going to be similar, but I'm hoping that they're not going to be the same. Because she's been, not you, Jennifer's been pestering me to get that list, or at least the starter list of stakeholders, so that she can hold the meetings. Now, let's go around the table for anything we haven't discussed. If Charlene wants to pop in, she can too.
I popped in earlier.
Okay, Judith?
I see a huge opportunity for the advocacy piece. I think just from the meetings that we've had over the last year, and just from what I've read in the papers and on Facebook, I think some of the communication gaps can be filled by a housing committee, which I think doesn't have to be, but I think generally people are going to be more approachable to a committee versus a trust. So you guys are going to be really, I see you as a perfect front line in doing a lot of the groundswell, which you already do all the time. But I don't think your committee should go away. I think some of the things need to shift. Obviously, creating the trust has created an entity that can act independent of the Board of Selectmen, independent of the town meeting. for the reasons that we are all advocates for housing, so that it can get done, right? But that doesn't mean that we can do everything. And that advocacy piece, I mean, jump in if you think I'm wrong. I think the advocacy piece, that meeting of the minds, as they say in the real estate world, is just critical for all of this. And it's critical for the other committees too. Do you know? I don't mean just the individual stakeholders that may or may not need the housing. I mean the conservation trust, all the other different stakeholders. So that's a change, I think, of your charge. I hope that still interests you.
Hopefully you can put that on an agenda, because that's not something we can tell you. Or even
Right.
selectmen could change the charge, but I'd rather it come from you guys rather than from above down.
So could we put an agenda item on our meetings where you give a report? On our monthly meetings?
Well, Art's always at the.
I know you're always
Yeah.
there, but make it official.
Make
The
it
only thing
official.
that
If we're gonna meet
Yes.
once a year in this,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
don't-
to
you have
review
once a year,
the
that's
housing
for sure.
plan, the production plan, but I know you're coming to every meeting, which is great, but your thoughts, bring them to our meetings so we can at least hear them in a formal setting.
Well,
Can I before you start, because this is kind of like my lecture on tabling, this is government 101. Unless they meet and they vote, Art speaking is Art.
That's right.
He is
That's
never
right.
speaking as the
Okay, so
housing
can we make that happen, or is that not a good idea?
You guys can make that
We
happen
can
by
vote
voting,
to have
by
a
meeting and
present,
voting,
have a
but
report.
he
Yeah,
cannot
well,
step to the mic saying, Art Bowden, Chairman of the Housing Committee, this is what I'm saying, because he can't do that without a vote.
Right.
But the general idea to.
But we could have that on the agenda. I think it's important.
yeah.
I think it's that's a great suggestion.
I'm not saying
And
don't do it,
and they
I'm just
meet
saying
early
that's
enough
how.
in the month that if there is something they want to bring forward to the committee,
Right.
they just need to let staff
No,
know.
Larry was gonna
and
be
it can get
next.
on the agenda.
Oh, no.
Larry, can you hear us?
Yes, I certainly can.
You can hear us.
Okay,
Sometimes he
good.
disappears.
It must have gotten cold
Just
down there
okay.
because you're frozen.
Yeah, and then to follow up with that, maybe even bring past programs that
Well,
may have worked, like the buy down program, which I think was,
yeah.
that was from like 2009, but if that's
Yeah.
something,
That was
So-
for the housing authority.
housing authority, that was different.
Yeah.
The housing thing.
Okay.
We
But
were
then
in
it's
favor of
also
that.
good for the viewer to understand that you're speaking for a whole committee as opposed to Superman. Or-
Yeah, but,
Do you know?
no,
It's-
I'm gonna be asking anyway, just to make sure, because
Yeah.
we move forward, because now that we're doing this, I'm gonna say, are you speaking for you, or are you
You
speaking
know,
for your
I'm
committee?
sitting here and I got a lot of ideas, and most of them won't stick to the wall, but, but I'm really holding myself, I can't hold myself back, but kind of just sitting on the sideline a little bit, because I'm really in your, Don, in your corner on this action plan. Because I don't want to be jumping in there and then, oh, that's in the action plan, or will be, I don't want to be, I want to wait till the action plan comes out and then build it.
The point is, you're gonna be part of the action.
I want to, I brought this up in our last couple of meetings. I said, we want to be part of the action plan. We want to at least eyeball it. Maybe we don't have, we don't have the magic marker to mark things up or whatever, but at least be aware of it and have some input. I mean, we do have a good cadre of minds in there. I mean, sitting right here, I mean, these three folks over here, really trump me all the time. And I'm just kind of the voice that in the background. But they're the ones that have some great ideas. I mean, you got Mary here that's controlling the historic
nothing.
aspect of town, and you got to be on her good side, because otherwise we're not going to do anything. But no, and Joe, he's out there. He just wants to do all kinds of great stuff. And of course Cindy with her involvement with and input from Hack and knowing that end of it inside and out, a great source. So there's some great, these people just didn't pop along and they have nothing to do.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to give you guys a pathway, and you were talking earlier about how you advise and who do you go to, so I'm just trying to figure out a pathway to get you to get in front of us on a monthly basis, which would
Right.
be a great idea.
You're-
If you can get together with the
100%,
quorum,
you know, you're 100%.
I think that would be your outlet to do that once a month.
And I think before, we didn't have the trust before.
It's
So
a
I
fully
think this is
Correct.
a
We
great
didn't have a trust before.
partnership to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
solidify that, not to speak for Art, but
Mhm.
we finally have
Yeah.
something, an entity to go to that has money,
Yeah.
that we could all collaborate together, a partnership, and say, yep, does this make sense? And you've got our support as an advisory committee. Come to us, let's talk it through. Here's what we're also thinking. Nothing, we haven't had this opportunity before.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, and to go before the board, I mean, you know, the board, I like it, I look at it, their plate is full. And they, with the trust now, housing should be just 99% off their plate. Leave it up to the trust. You know, because the board of selectmen, they got to worry about all the other stuff in town. I can't believe half the stuff that comes before the board. Some nights I sit there and she's like, I can't believe they're worried about barking dogs and some other stuff like this that goes on, and you know, and we got one end you got sewer projects that's costing hundreds of millions of dollars, and the other end you're worrying about where we're going to park cars down in Harwich. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're all related.
It's all
related.
Pretty much sums
It's
it
all
up.
policy.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I'll throw my 2 cents.
Yeah, I want you
please.
to. That's what I was going to say, is Larry out there.
You lost your face there, Larry.
I wasn't going to talk about the noise at the bar rooms late at night, but my suggestion would be that, I think, number one, you've had a good start, and number two, you probably don't have to wait a whole year to come back together again. But I would say that at the call of the chair, either Art or Dawn, when something interesting comes up that we're looking for your input, perhaps before we go in front of the public, because I think that's a critical thing that we should do, and we should do that as a committee when we come up with something, and I anticipate that being in the not too distant future. Then we go both as a housing committee and as a housing trust and provide and show a united front to the town when we present it, and probably at a public hearing so everybody can kick the can down the road. I think that's going to give us some credibility and goods and B, some exposure, and it's just a matter of picking a good project and going on with that, and that's obviously what we're doing now with how we're moving forward, I think. But my suggestion is we can meet a little more regularly, and I would say you could even plan it for 6 months unless there was some reason not to do it, but do it every 6 months instead of every year.
I agree, Larry. We're actually going to do even more than that. But interestingly, Art brought this up, and you're kind of bringing it up. I had a discussion last night with Larry, the Board of Selectmen chair, and we're going to have an agenda item for the Board of Selectmen. I'm not sure it's every meeting or every other meeting. That will be a report from me about the Housing Trust's activities. So in a certain way, they're going to actually be more involved rather than less involved than they have been, because they don't have to do the heavy lifting, but they're going to be informed about what's going on. Because there's way too many things, you're right, it gets buried in the conversation. It's going to be a regular agenda item based on debriefing them for trust actions.
And that's a good thing. It shows that you're making progress, and it forces you to actually do it.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Well said.
I've said all I need to say.
Good. Joe?
No, I'm good. I agree with you. We've talked many meetings about advocacy and communication, and that would be a piece that we thought we could do, and take that off your plate. And I haven't read the charge, but after listening to all this, I already know we have to change it to some degree, and I have to read it first. And then that last piece is the Orleans.
You never admit that, Joe.
Reread it.
You gotta go to Sydney's college. I would have.
It's okay, I presuppose that. That's why we're here. to say,
I know.
What do you want to do, and let's do it.
My problem is I'm so black and white. It gets me in trouble a lot. The Orleans thing, there's a possibility of actually putting this stuff in writing, but not nearly as big as that. You don't need all that. That's like the Magna Carta. It's wicked, and it just goes on. But I think that's something that we should talk about in the next meeting, Art, about creating that and really having roles and responsibilities
Well,
based off of this too.
They filled it up with a lot of their housing production plan. But,
Yeah.
I mean, but it was revolutionary.
Don't get too far ahead of your
I
headlines,
won't,
because
I
I
won't.
would like to be able to get back to J.M. Goldstein and say, okay, what are you guys doing? Is that gonna be a component of what you're planning? And if that's the
Yeah.
case, we plug it in then.
Right. Okay.
But I promise you, I'll keep you apprised about what is part of that process, and when you'd need to give us input for that, or what isn't, and go to it and develop something.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's two of you there. Mary?
I'm good for now. I'm happy to support however is in the best interest of the trust.
Brenda?
That was just the point I was making about the meeting, maybe getting you guys to the table once a month, I think that'd be a good idea.
We're meeting
Yeah.
again next Thursday.
Yeah, you guys can be there. And then bring in, any past programs that you know of that may have failed, have been successful. And, meeting once a year is great, but maybe it can be twice a year too. So those are good points.
Can I just broaden one thing? Because
Absolutely.
so much of life is, I used to say this to my kids growing up, musically inclined, but the right note at the wrong time is the wrong note. Just because something failed, don't assume that you don't want to bring it up again, because the circumstances or the timing might not have been right. So if you examine something and say, geez, I don't know how this failed in Yarmouth, but this looks like a terrific idea. I wouldn't be put off by it didn't work before.
I don't know where that came from.
Well,
but-
that's why,
Yeah,
that's why I said
okay.
it in one sentence,
Yeah.
but yes,
Yes.
agreed.
Even if you're looking at something and say, failed, not failed, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Bring
just
it forward.
bring everything.
If we're not talking about it, we should be.
I get calls from other towns going, how on earth did you ever get the ADU bylaw passed by right?
Because it was a good idea.
They can't even get one by special permit. They're meeting with so much opposition, so, feel good about that, everybody.
Yeah, that's great.
Timing is everything.
We also started by having it by special permit,
Yes,
so we weren't doing it from
Right.
scratch.
We had it.
yes.
What you guys did first or?
Yeah, we did in December, and we did in December of 2018, and we have had 10 in the last.
That's great.
since the
That's
district,
great.
So,
We started out with our old one with sharing a common wall to the main residence. There were all kinds of requirements.
No, that was gone.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we started there. It was like ridiculous
Painful.
because you
Yep,
couldn't
couldn't do
build
it.
anything.
Couldn't do it.
It wasn't even possible.
We're
And
making
yet-
progress.
And yet, Don, the census worker, could tell you that without telling you exactly
So far
where,
this year.
because you're not
Well,
allowed.
I'm saying, I think when Larry was telling the planning board, I think we've had 6 or 7 in.
Oh, special permit ones? Oh,
in
yeah,
Special
we-
permit
yeah.
ones in 1 year.
Yeah.
We seem to have one
Yep.
every other meeting.
You got some out there
Before we
whether you
changed-
realize it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Before
no,
we
we
changed the
have,
zoning
we
bylaw.
probably, since I became the planner, we've probably had
15, 20?
probably 15 or 20 total.
15 to 20 or even more?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yep,
And we're seeing it first in the historic commission with people coming in front of us to renovate their garages.
yeah,
So
Right.
we've had, 3 of those in the last
Yeah.
2 months or so.
Yeah,
Come in
Yep.
front of us.
which is great.
I want to end this with an irony that you should ponder.
Oh, no.
Well, our percentage of affordable housing has just gone up because it's a percentage against year-round housing, which has just gone down. We have made progress numerically. That is not the kind of progress I'm looking to make.
I was gonna say, there's
Yeah.
that.
But it's not
There's
actual
numbers, but-
housing stock, it's just
No, it's
a
what the
number.
state recognizes
Yeah. Yes.
as our
Okay,
percentage.
well,
So it's
I
gonna
don't
be a
think we're
false
gonna
sense of-
stop.
False sense
Right.
of success.
I want everybody understanding, leaving the room, it looks better than it did a year or two ago, but it's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just done a good job, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of people in Washington that would take credit for that.
I don't use the W word in conversation anymore. I am
Like
ignoring it.
conversation.
What time are those people speaking?
That's
gotta
a
be a
Washington
good
thing, I don't want to
movie.
hear. All right, if nobody has anything else to say, I really appreciate the time that you're spending on this tonight, and you will be spending on it with the stuff that we need to get back from you.
And quite frankly, I don't think the trust would exist if it hadn't been for the housing committee's work all these years. You know, so,
Something got done.
Bottom line is, let's get somebody into a house.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are you, do we have to call
we
any
officially
of our
adjourned?
committees to
Thanks, Larry.
adjourn?
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah,
Do we
have to adjourn?
officially adjourn?
move to
I'll make
adjourn
a-
somebody.
I'll make a
I'll move
motion
to
for the
adjourn.
housing
Second.
committee to adjourn.
And I'll second the housing committees.
I'll second the trust.
So moved.
All right.
Favor, aye.
Aye.